All right, so just so we understand who you're talking to, just so you understand that I'm not talking out of my ass, this is a little look at my credit score. My credit score currently, as of what is this, April 3rd, 2021, is 850. Excellent. Obviously, just to make sure nobody thinks this is photoshopped or anything, you can take a look right here. This is my credit history. It was, I think the lowest that it's been was like eight within the last year or something. I think the lowest it was like maybe 840 something or something, and right now it's 850. And then they talk about the score factors and whatnot. So bottom line is, I just have to show that specifically so people don't think that I'm talking out of my ass and I don't know anything about credit. I originally had a 530 credit score when I came out of college, and that was back in 2005. And my first job, I think I started making $50,000 a year to start. And when I bought my first car, I got screwed. The interest rate, I think, was a 27% on a 2006 Chrysler 300. And slowly but surely, I was able to pay off my student loans and work my way forward to the point where now any of the lowest interest rates on anything that I'm interested in getting, whether it's a mortgage or a car loan, I qualify for, which is ultimately the reason why it is important to not only build your credit, but it's important to keep your credit spotless. So why am I making this video? Well, I just saw this story right here. Biden wants to shut down credit bureaus. What would that mean for you? So right now, for most people who don't understand, there are three credit bureaus. There's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Um, there's three bureaus that give three ratings to banks when you try to encounter one of the sales brokers for a loan. So they give you three scores. Usually the scores are never equal because it's coming from three different credit bureaus with three different rating processes. Now, I was always taught when we were refinancing people's houses, I was always taught that the reason why we get three scores, and we always take the middle score when we try to work together deals. They say that to use the lowest score of the three is not fair for the borrower, and to use the highest score is not fair to the bank because the bank is ultimately trying to overcharge you on the loan so that they make more money. So I'm looking now. Now, first of all, I haven't even read this yet, and I want you to read it with me as soon as I start reading it for the first time. But let me explain to you what I personally believe based on my own observations. I am a millennial. I was born in 1981. Um, as far as I knew, well, back when I was born, credit cards weren't really a big thing. Credit cards were very sparingly issued. By the time I graduated from high school, that was 1999, and I was going into college, it became pretty much mandatory to get a credit card because, you were supposed to start building your credit card around the time you were 18. Now, I screwed up my credit. I'll just say it just like that. I screwed up my credit almost immediately. I used to shop a lot at CompUSA, and when I started working at Best Buy, I was using my credit card a lot, and I was trying to keep up with the payments by paying it back using whatever money I was earning working at Best Buy back in 2004, I believe, 2004, 2005. I ended up quitting Best Buy because from what I realized, I wasn't getting paid enough to make all my payments. And then I ended up defaulting on a Discover card to the tune of $5,000. Um, I ended up taking out a student loan in order to consolidate my credit cards owed and my other student loan. And I ended up getting a scholarship to go to grad school. So I got a scholarship to go to grad school. I did take out a student loan, and then I paid back the student loan until it was down to zero, paid it off. Now, as a millennial, the one thing I realize is the government always makes a way out of no way. The last thing they need is more rioting and more civil unrest. So it occurred to me that now you've got half of these millennials have shitty credit because they ruined it. Like when I was a kid, people were ruining their credit by purchasing Sprint cell phones. I had friends who would run outrageous bills with Nextel. I'm talking about $2,000 bills. Like I had friends who would buy brand new phones, put it on the bill, and then run up phone bills with those phones. In fact, I had one of my there was somebody I knew, and they had a controlling spouse. Or no, I can't call them a spouse because they at the time, no, in fact they weren't married. But this person would make. Could you imagine if you had a girlfriend who would make you keep your phone on all day so she could listen in on you to make sure you weren't talking to any other women? I don't know if you can imagine that, but yeah, I've seen it. And they would run up outrageous phone bill, like shit, you like phone bills that look like you were buying computers. It was crazy. Like I had never seen phone bills that high, except unless you buy like two iPhones from Apple that are brand new. But long story short, people used to fuck up their credit on phones. People used to fuck up their credit buying Air Jordans. People used to fuck up their credit just buying stupid shit all the time. Gucci, all this stuff to make it look like they're rich, but you know that they broke. But bottom line is, half of these millennials have shitty credit. Half of these millennials can't buy anything. They can't buy cars. They can't buy houses because they never survived the underwriting process to buy a house. For me, underwriting, when I walked into the what was it? I walked into this mortgage broker, and I gave them probably the easiest purchase of a home ever. I mean, I had my tax returns, everything was there, credit was perfect, credit history was perfect. I gave them the easiest possible deal they could ever got. Most of these millennials can't do that. But then it gets worse when you go down to the next generation. You go down to what's called Generation Z. Generation Z, let me just clarify their years. Generation Z is a dumpster fire. Generation Z's age range, those born between 97 and 2015. So you're saying the kids were born 2 years before I went into college, and by the time I was graduating from grad school, those are the kids of Generation Z. Generation Z is more of a ninja generation than I was. Ninja stands for no income, no jobs, no assets. You may have heard the term. This was a term used in 2008 to denote the people who were basically the cause of the financial crisis. Banks loaned a lot of people money who had no hopes of paying it back. Now you fast forward to 2020, you've got government giving people stimulus checks, and they're wasting it on cryptocurrency and making cryptocurrency prices rise. They're wasting it on the stock market. They're wasting it buying guns, buying ammo, and basically causing inflation everywhere. You're feeling inflation in terms of higher costs of goods and services. Inflation really means that the money itself has less purchasing power. And in a reaction to that, the price of goods and services increases because the value of the money goes down. So we are seeing inflation happening all around us, but what we're really supposed to call it is stagflation. Stagflation is a long period of time of unemployment, underemployment, higher cost of living due to inflation, and then poorly targeted government subsidies, i.e. stimulus checks, that cause even more inflation, which is basically what we're seeing. So the stagflation started under Trump and it continued into Biden's presidency. So let's just get those little terms out of the way. But this ninja loan generation, Generation Z, they are an absolute dumpster fire. In fact, those kids have just missed 2, possibly even 3 years of schooling. They have no skills. They can't hold a job. They have no discipline. Most of them came out of broken homes. Their parents have not instilled a sense of discipline in them. Like, I know a lot of you watch all these cops shooting people, and you're like, well, if you would just do what the cop says, and you would just listen to what the police says and follow instructions and comply. What I need you to understand is Generation Z doesn't comply. Generation Z has been raised in single-parent households, or in many cases, no-parent households. They've been raised by foster parents or guardians. And they've basically done all they felt like doing whenever they felt like doing it. Their parents can't stop them. Their teachers can't stop them from doing what they want. Nobody can tell them anything. So obviously, when they come up against a police officer, obviously it's more than likely going to end badly. The point is, These are the people who you see out there rioting. These are the people you see out there looting. These are the people you see out there causing civil unrest. I know a lot of people like to type racist jokes when they look at Antifa pages and they look at Black Lives Matter pages, and they're like, oh, gee, isn't it amazing? All of them had a day off from work that day. And they like to talk all these racist jokes and stuff. But what I need you to understand is you're dealing with an entire generation that can barely work, isn't earning enough money to pay rent, God forbid, pay a mortgage. They're not earning enough. Some of them are able to get by because they're lucky enough to be in a position where they have money for whatever reason. But the vast majority of the entire generation is a ninja generation. No income, no jobs, no assets. They're subsisting on government welfare, whether it's these stimulus checks, whether it's unemployment, whatever it is. That's how they're getting by. Then you come down to the next generation. The next generation is called Generation Alpha, which I'm doing this so this way you understand the terms I'm using, because believe me, I put a lot of study in this. So what is the age of Generation Alpha? Generation Alpha applies to children born between 2011 and 2025. So basically, all of the children being born right now, that's Generation Alpha. That means kids from this day backwards. You're talking about kids who are about 10 to 11 years old, born from 2011 up till the present, and up till 2025. So you've got Generation Z, which I can promise you is going to be the most unproductive generation that this country could have ever possibly imagined. And then right behind them, you've got Generation Alpha, which is going to be born already in debt from the day they're born because their parents couldn't afford their hospital bills. Delivering a baby now may cost you between $10,000 and $30,000 depending upon who you are and where you are. So you've got two generations that are, I can't even think of a perfect word, doomed, ruined, failures. I can't even. I'm trying to think of the best word because it's easy to just say fucked, but I'm not going to say that one. I'll say something like that. I basically need a word that says that there's absolutely no hope for them and they're ruined before they even got started and they're already behind the eight ball. They're about to be knocked into the corner pocket. That's how bad this situation is. The financial situation, if you understand the numbers, especially when you look at America's about to be $30 trillion in debt. We're spending $61,000 per second. When you look at the overall statistics and numbers, you realize it's really bad. So, what are my obligations? My obligation is to work for 10 more years and retire and get out of Dodge before the shit hits the fan. So in 10 years, Generation Alpha will be, 10 years. If they were born in 2011, right now they're 10. By the time I get out, they'll be in their 20s. And I will be I'll be getting close to 60. So I got to get the hell out of here. I don't know if I'm going to live abroad, whatever it'll be, because most of these other countries are worse off than America. See, the thing about it is America's in pretty bad shape, but America, strangely enough, is the cleanest shirt in the hamper. That's what America is. It's the cleanest shirt in the hamper. So I didn't even get to the article yet, but basically I just wanted to give you some background on my own observations. It occurred to me years ago that the government was going to have to get rid of or modify the credit system. The credit system assigns a debt to income ratio to everybody. Just so you understand, debt to income ratio is basically you take your debts and divide it by your income, and that gives you a percentage. If your percentage is lower than 0.5, that means that you're living by paying money that you earn, but you're living below the amount that your debts are incurring. If your debt to income ratio is higher than 0.5, that means that more than half of all your money coming in is going to pay debt. Again, if your debt to income ratio is below 0.5, it means that less than half of your money is going to pay your debts. In order to buy a house, you basically have to prove that your debt to income ratio is lower than 0.5. Most banks do not want to give you a loan if more than half of your income is going to pay liabilities and debts. Okay, hopefully that you understand that. So, long story short, one of the more fascinating platform items of the Biden presidential campaign was the idea of transferring consumer credit ratings from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion to a public registry under the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So, what is happening here? What they want to do is they want to try to get rid of the three credit ratings. And despite the fact that there's so many people that argue against them, I actually think that they are better off fixed than expunged. Understand something. Government is terrible at running anything. Whenever government's running something, it's trying to grab more power, it's trying to grow government, and it's trying to raise taxes so that it can fund itself, because government makes no profit. Government does not profit. It just taxes the people more. The sad thing is, so many people who are millennials, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha are going to be so fucked by debt until they're going to welcome this bullshit. Because under the current system, they are already unproductive. They have no real money, no real assets, no income, no jobs. So for them, getting rid of the credit bureaus and tearing down the financial system makes perfect sense for them. Somebody like me, who started working at a mobile mart across the street from my high school, making $7.25 an hour, and worked my way into an 850 credit score, they have no respect for somebody like me. They think that they can just take, get. They're going to vote that way. So anybody who stands there and offers them more welfare is the person who will get elected, i.e. Bernie Sanders. Kamala Harris wasn't radical enough for them. Kamala Harris, as far as I'm concerned, she's probably more like a right-wing Democrat, just like Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden isn't radical enough for these progressives. If you think that Kamala Harris and Biden are bad, just wait until you see what these progressives try to vote into office. They may go for a full-out Marxist. I mean, you throw the phrase around, but I mean, they would literally vote in Joseph Stalin as long as he's promising to hand them stimulus checks every single month. Believe me, they would. As reported by The Balance, this idea was examined in depth in a paper published by a think tank called Demos in 2019. One major takeaway of that paper was that decisions drawing on credit data reproduce and spread existing racial inequality. That's a bunch of bullshit. I'm a black male with an 850 credit score who started at 550. Existing racial inequality? That's bullshit. Making it harder to achieve true economic equity. Demos proposed the idea of a public credit registry in that paper. So basically, the Democrats will do what they always do. They'll say, oh, it's racist, oh, it's sexist, oh, it's misogynist, oh, it's transphobic, blah, 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 blah. I started with a 530 credit score, and I worked my way into a 550. I stopped spending money on my credit cards that I didn't have. I didn't wear flashy clothes. I lived with parents up until I could buy a house. But apparently, you've got three generations who are going to control the vote, and they're going to vote progressive socialism. That's what they're planning to do. So, the CFPB has a new acting director, blah, blah, blah. None of this is really important. I'll keep on going. It says the three primary reporting agencies analyze consumer borrowing and repayment patterns. Yeah, they make sure that when you borrow money, that you actually pay it back. Of all the videos I've done, I've explained to you that when you use a credit card, you have to use only what you can afford to pay back in cash immediately, and then that night or the day that it gets posted, immediately you pay it back. I maintain $0 balances. What I don't do is run out and use my credit card to buy Air Jordans. What I don't do is run out and use my credit card to buy car modifications. What I don't do is run out and use my credit card to buy a bunch of shit that I can't even think of because it's so stupid. Like Gucci bags and Gucci belts. If I wrote an autobiography, I'd have to sue myself. Yeah, see, I'm thinking of that song. What's his name? 2 Chainz, I think. Yeah. So anyway, while lenders certainly have the right to determine the risk of a potential borrower, the problem is the lack of transparency. That's a bunch of bullshit. That's a bunch of bullshit. I can look up my credit report right now, and they will literally lay out every single thing that I am doing right. And they will lay out every single thing that I'm doing wrong. What do you mean transparency? Excuse me, it says right here that you borrowed money to buy a Gucci belt, but you didn't pay it back. Transparency, really. So, this can result in the same person having three very different credit scores. Okay, if you look at my credit scores, uh, all of them are above 800, but my main credit score with the bank that I do most of my business with is 850. Even American Express shows me what an 850. But the bottom line is, all three can't be wrong. Obviously, you're doing something wrong that's causing them to drop your score. Oh, well, maybe it's that you owe back child support that you haven't been paying. Maybe a judge garnished your wages because you weren't paying your credit cards off. That happened to me with Discover. I paid them $5,000 off of a garnishment. I tried to pay them, but I missed the payment the deadline, because I ignored them. They were calling my house all the time. I ignored them. I'm not afraid to admit it. I ignored their asses. No, if your credit's bad, you're doing something wrong. That's the bottom line. I don't want to hear that racism. I don't want to hear that misogyny. I don't want to hear that transphobia. I don't want to hear that bullshit. If your credit's bad, you're doing something wrong. If I were to come and look at your credit report, it would take me about 3 minutes to figure out what you're doing wrong. Because all I'd have to do is look at your credit history. And it would lay out for me and be like, wait a minute. It says right here that you didn't pay for that Gucci belt on time. Oh, well, that's why your credit's fucked up. Oh, it says right here that you missed your mortgage payment 3 months in a row. Oh, that's why your credit's fucked up. Oh, it says right here that you ran out and bought a Honda Accord, but you missed some payments. Oh, that's why your credit's fucked up. I don't want to hear that bullshit, because I know it's not true. I know it's not true. The sad thing is, in order for these credit bureaus and in order for these rating agencies and banks, in order for them to talk sense into the public, what you need is somebody who's just standing there like me, just telling you to your face, you're full of shit and stop lying. But you're never going to get that, because, you're just never going to get it. I mean, fortunately, we have people like Kevin Samuels, who's literally standing there telling you to your face, you know what, you're full of shit. What you believe is not true. It's all lies. It's bullshit. And if you don't do it, what I'm telling you to do, you're done. You can't do that in today's society. He called me an idiot. He said I missed my payments and I'll never be worth shit. Yeah, see, that's what'll happen, and the next thing you know, you'll get what is it called? Censored, canceled, whatever it is, cancel culture, whatever. He said that I'm a woman and I can't make my payments because I decided to take out lots of student loans and not pay them back, and because I stayed at school too long, I can't get a man. Okay, so Biden proposal would improve people's access to their credit and may lead to standardized calculations. It could also lead to volatility if the criteria used change with each presidential administration. And that right there is the problem. If the president is putting first of all, this is the private sector. That's number one. I don't understand what these Republicans are doing up there. See, first of all, this is the reason why I hate the Republicans and I hate the Democrats. They're both weaklings. If all of them were like me, shit would get done. And it would get done in a way where we're not deep in debt. Bottom line is, these people aren't telling off this president. It's like, excuse me, you have no control over the financial sector. That is not what the executive branch's constitutional duties are. The constitutional duties of the executive branch is to enforce the laws that the Congress themselves make. It's not for you to try to play banker. We're $30 trillion in debt in a year because the executive branch, under Trump, under Obama, under Biden, under everybody back to Reagan, has played banker. Obviously, you're no good at it. If you're spending $61,000 per second and we're headed to $30 trillion of debt and you're handing out welfare checks and people are using it to buy Dogecoin, obviously you're not good at playing banker. I'm a lot better at playing banker than you are. Obviously. In any event, it could also lead to volatility in the criteria used changing with each presidential administration. There are also other credit bureaus out there that have different scoring criteria. often used by lenders that work with customers who have bad credit. First of all, it's like this. No matter what they try to do, these banks are not going to lend a lot of money to people if they themselves are on the hook for it. Our problem is the government insures bad loans. That was the problem in 2008. That's the problem now. They insure bad loans. They insure bad student loans. If you have a student who's a D minus on average, chances are giving them student loans to try to be a physical therapist is probably not going to work out that well. If you have a person who's already deep in debt, signing them a credit card, a brand new credit card, chances are that's not going to work out too well. If you have people who have demonstrated a history of poor financial planning, chances are that's not going to work out too well if you're giving them loans. Now, the scary thing is, what happens when the number of people who demonstrate poor financial responsibility grows so large that they become a voting bloc and they have the ability to vote for straight up bullshit socialists who are going to just come in there and just hand out welfare checks just to make sure that you're not, I don't know, taking over an entire city block and taking over a police precinct, or just to make sure that the civil unrest doesn't get so out of hand that the cops are literally at war with the civilians like they were in RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3. What are you supposed to do? You literally have let me tell you about millennials. Most millennials right now are in their late 30s and hitting 40s or possibly even past 40. A lot of the females are not married, or they're divorced, or they're single moms. A lot of the men, the males, they were the smart ones. They said, you know what, I'm not getting married because there's such a high risk of me getting divorced that I'm not getting married until I know everything is perfect. So I'm probably going to end up going marry a foreign woman, and I'll get a woman from a culture that's indoctrinated her to be a mother and a wife. So instead of me getting married here and risking half of my shit in divorce court, I'm not going to roll those dice. I'm not going to play Russian roulette with 4 bullets in the chamber. I'm not going to do that. So the women are, a lot of them, they took out lots of student loans. A lot of them did get jobs and they did work a lot of that money back. A lot of them are not paid off. Some of them have their own apartments. Some of them have their own houses. As far as the men, a lot of them have their own apartments. A lot of them have their own houses. A lot of them are cohabiting with no intention of getting married. Like, for instance, ladies, if he hasn't put a ring, like, what did Beyonce say? If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it. Well, guess what? If he hasn't put a ring on it, just like Kevin Samuels says, game over. He'll play that song, boom, 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 and you're done. And that's it. That's it. That's just it. So the millennials are screwed. But when I try not to look too much at the millennial group. When I look at the next generation down and I see just how bad Generation X is, no, not Generation X, Generation Z. When I see just how bad a dumpster fire is coming out of Generation Z, and then I see the insanity of debt and just, I can't even imagine how bad things are going to be for Generation Alpha. I feel bad I really do. I feel bad. I talk down about them, but I really do feel bad for them. I really do. I really, really, really do. But when I think about what's going on right now, and I think about how badly you've got 3 entire generations of failure, and even the people who want to think that they're succeeding, they're in some level of failure. A lot of these people have divorced. A lot of these people are paying child support for the next 20 years. A lot of these people have no health care, and a lot of these people are sick. It's like even the ones who want to believe that they're on top, that they know if they look at the mirror, they know damn well they ain't on top. And now you've got my entire generation is basically ruined. Generation Z is a dumpster fire. Generation Alpha, I don't know what comes after dumpster fire. I don't know. But it's like a dumpster fire with extra oil and extra gasoline. But that's just what you're looking at. Be aware of what's happening with your government right now because this is going to get crazy.